Welcome back, everybody, to the Tentacles of Cuyahoga County. I'm your host, the infamous ex-chief of the city of East Cleveland. It is the week of the 17th. And I keep forgetting, and that's not a green screen, by the way. That's a real live tree behind me. I keep forgetting to introduce actually everything that I have going on in the channel. So we have Facebook, and I'll put links up to everything here as I go, but we have Facebook. We're on Facebook. You're more than welcome to comment on Facebook. You're more than welcome to comment on the actual link of YouTube channel. I have multiple ways you can contact me. I believe that there is a WhatsApp link on the Facebook page, and in case you don't know, WhatsApp is end-to-end encrypted. Meaning it's encrypted on your side of the device, it's encrypted on my side of the device, and anything in between supposedly can't be intercepted. And I'm pretty confident with that. I also have, going back to the end-to-end encryption, is with Signal, another app. Again, I'll put my handle. It also is end-to-end encrypted. And both of them are open source software, meaning that other people have tested the veracity of what they are saying for WhatsApp and Signal being encrypted so that you can't get any intrusion. It can't be leaked. And I know that's a concern of some of you. And I understand and completely concur with you. I've been using Signal for quite some time now, and I think it's the way to go for communication. Also, going back to the old school of methodology of the email, I also have email, and then I'm more than happy to share that link. But I've also been asked about starting a Patreon page. That's way above my pay grade at this point. I'm still trying to figure everything out here with this channel. I do have where you can buy me a cup of coffee. I will link that right there. All right. You're more than welcome to buy me a cup of coffee. And obviously hitting the like and subscribe buttons help the algorithm supposedly in YouTube of recognizing the channel and pushing it out to others that might be like-minded or might like this message that we're talking about on the channel. So please subscribe. Please hit the like button. Unless you are the one person, which it actually stopped since I called them out, by the way. I usually get one dislike, and don't try to prove me wrong. Okay, don't somebody change the like button to dislike now just because I'm talking about it. There's usually one dislike, but it didn't happen. I think the last 2 episodes, I did not get a dislike. So hopefully that will continue to happen. Either that or they've given up on me. Either way, I'm fine with it. So, last week we had a couple of things that I was thinking about attempting to do. For this episode, I haven't closed out the series in Dawn yet. Dawn Pasella. If you haven't checked out, got to go back. You've missed way too much. All right, go back. I'll try to link somewhere. All right, the episodes of Dawn Pasella, you need to watch them, get yourself up to speed so that you can listen intelligently on what I'm talking about. But anyways, I didn't want to quite close that. I know that there's some other things that I wanted to get to. I know some of you have commented, well, not necessarily commented, but have sent me messages relative to things that you wanted to see me cover. And I recommend and wholeheartedly want to thank everyone that is sending me messages, whether it be messages of encouragement, messages of potential stories, messages of wrongdoing, messages of solidifying and showcasing certain law enforcement officers and or agencies. Again, these are the messages I want sent to me, so please continue to do so. I will be your voice. I'm already fired, so I can say what I want to say, right? I hopefully there's that First Amendment thing. So I didn't want to completely bring Dawn's, because there's actually still things out there that I have on the Freedom of Information Act that I'm still waiting for it to come back. I didn't want to totally close it out, and the parents of Dawn actually wanted to come on the show. I met them during an event for Dawn 2 weeks ago, I believe, and they had expressed their interest on coming on the channel and telling their story, and I want to do that, but because of scheduling, I wasn't able to I wasn't able to get that done for this episode. So we're going to slightly move forward with another gentleman, Robert Grundstein, who also had issues with Cuyahoga County, hence the Tentacles of Cuyahoga County. And I was actually I was actually in a conversation. I was actually in a conversation with, and I don't know if they actually want to be identified. I try to keep everybody's privacy, right? People that don't want to be identified. So when I'm having conversations outside of this show, I attempt to keep everybody's identity in check. But I was speaking with someone that is fairly close to me, and they were expressing, well, I have some things for you, but they're not necessarily in Cuyahoga County. And again, that's the name. That name was given to me by Mike O.Malley. All right, that's the name of the show. Thank you, Mike O.Malley, for giving me that name. I wear it proudly, sir. You gave it to me in one of your press conferences, so I wear that name proudly. But that's just the name of the show. It doesn't necessarily mean that we have to actually keep it capsized to Cuyahoga County. It can outreach other counties. But anyways, Robert Grundstein, author of a book. I'll make certain to drop links. He actually has been in communication with me. He's trying to get me to sponsor his book, which I have no issue doing. But just logistically, we're trying to figure out how to make that happen. But I don't actually need any of his money off of his book. I wholeheartedly think that all of the money that comes in should go to him anyways. I'm going to put links up to his book, and that way you are able to read for yourself. But I have an interview coming up with him. It's probably going to run into 2 episodes at least. I have an interview with him, a very striking interview, and I want to make certain, because we actually were just communicating today, and there was a part that's in his book that we forgot to talk about. So I'm going to interject on his behalf and give that part of the story at some point during our next 2 episodes. So I think that's it. The next segment, I had already planned on giving you guys some analytics on the channel, which again have far surpassed anything of my expectations. Again, we've only been rolling this since March 25th, and we're already becoming quite a force to be reckoned with. So anyways, the analytics for the next segment are coming up. I wanted to share with you what's going on with the channel. And I got this fancy mic, but you can't really see it right here. Right? It's one of my portable mics here that I found for these events. I'm in a house that is sometimes noisy, and dogs, family. So it's nice to actually come out and do some remote recording, right, in the middle of the wilderness. And you really can't see, but I'm by a lake, which is nice. I like lakes. Lakes like me. Anyways, next segment, going to get into analytics, and we'll go from there. I'll catch you in the next segment. So I just remembered there was also, I'm adjusting the light that's pegging me right in the face. The one thing that I had also wanted to do was make certain that I shared analytics with you guys, transparency, and to show you how, honestly, how the channel is actually growing extremely fast. So these are live stats that I'm putting up here, and so we have 42,150 views so far as of lifetime, and I guess we started on March 25th. So there's 42,150 views so far. We have Scrolling over into the watch time, we have 2.2 thousand hours of watch time. And we have 1,144 subscribers. And again, these are things that continue to grow through each episode. I think the last episode that we did on Dawn's segment, what was it, episode 11? I believe I got 88 subscribers just off of that episode itself. And I'm learning the analytics as I go along. I wasn't even aware that apparently per episode I was able to see how many subscribers that we were getting. But anyways, I just wanted to be transparent, show that, again, a thankful shout out to all of you for listening to the channel and for it to continue to grow, because there's a lot of important messages that need to come out of this channel. And again, hopefully some necessary changes and the ability to perhaps understand law enforcement in a better, clear, more concise way. Thank you. Bob Robert Grundstein. He's the author of Bad Minds, High Places, Cleveland, Ohio to Washington State, America's Archipelago of Legal Failure. And I had an opportunity to review the book, and it's somewhat amazing to me. I always thought that my story was the worst, and seems like everybody I end up talking to here has a worse story of the legal system than I guess I should count my blessings. I don't know. But yours, and I did, just so you know, I try to get public records requests on some of the things just so that I could speak intelligently. Nothing really came back, but I will tell you, like Solon flat out said that they have no records of any incidents with you. Chagrin Falls told me that it was beyond their record retention. And I was still waiting from Lakewood and Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Department and North Royalton. I haven't heard anything from them, but could you maybe give us just a little background of yourself at this point, or?
Sure. I mean, what would you like to know? You're the interviewer, and I don't want to talk too much. What would you like to know? Like,
well, I mean, just can you give us
that sort of thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was born in Detroit, and my father was a professor of law, and he also had a PhD in public administration. He was sort of an expert on the administrative state. And we eventually moved to Cleveland, where my dad got a job in the political science department of Case Western Reserve. He was doing postgraduate executive development. And he was a very educated person, a scholar in the Hebraic sense, and also an ethicist who insisted on living life clean and according to your own view of life. You don't go along with the group at the expense of principle, which means you have to stand alone at times. And it's scary and it's hard, but that was the code. So I went, that was my family. We lived in Cleveland Heights near the old library. And I went back to Michigan. I went to University of Michigan for university, and then ended up coming back and finishing undergraduate school. I got a degree in piano performance, and then went to Cleveland State Marshall Law School, because I had paid my way through. I actually paid my way through most of undergraduate school and law school. It was a lot of work. So, and I graduated and became a member of the Washington State Bar after clerking for various judges. And quite simple. It was a time where I wasn't sure where I wanted to live. I was in my early 30s. So I was trying places out. I went to New Mexico, sounded like fun. It wasn't fun. I missed trees. And then Washington, I had a brother in Washington State, which, had trees, a lot of water, a lot of soggy white people. but it had trees and the coast and mountains. So I went up there and thought it was pleasant. So I took the bar. It was in 1991. I passed the bar there and entered, and really, never really practiced. It turned out I really didn't like the profession. Didn't have much in common with attorneys. There are other things in life that were much more compelling to me. So, but I remained on active status, but never really practiced. Occasionally, someone would ask me to write a brief or help with a project, and I was on active status, but I didn't practice full time by any means. But I just maintained my license. And from 1991 through 2012, I was just on, active. Let's see. During that period, I was on active status until about 2001, 2002. Then I went to inactive status because the bar dues were cheaper. So from 1991 to 2001, 2002, I was on active status in Washington State. Then from 2002 to 2012, I was on inactive status. And during the middle of the 90s, I wasn't even living in Washington State. I went back to Cleveland Heights to take care of my parents, who were becoming significantly elderly and who needed someone around in the house all the time to really just help them cook, clean, be there for health emergencies, of which there were 3 or 4. They just needed someone all the time. And my family, well, between my father and I, our code was you don't, put your parents in an old people's home. You don't put them on the sanitary waste heap of humans. You stick together and take care of people, which I did. It's one of the best things I ever did. And then my dad departed this mortal coil in the year 2000, and my mom went to Seattle to live in one of my brother's assisted living communities. So between 1995 to 2001, I was in Cleveland taking care of parents. Then I was there for several more years about a condominium in Chagrin Falls, which is the source of significant trouble. So I had that for till about 2007, 2008.
And it sounds like, and I don't want to jump too far ahead. It's just in your book. It sounded like you had a pretty strained relationship with some of the members of your family, at least.
Well, no, up until
relative to your, I believe it was your mom.
It was very cordial. It's just that, like King Lear, after, the person, your father, the person who organizes everything and who is the source of problem resolution, who's the authoritative voice in terms of quality, he also controlled assets. I mean, I didn't need much of what he had, but my sister had a husband who was an alcoholic, and she needed significant help with her family. So it was like King Lear, when the king, my father, who organized things and controlled family wealth, made it available, died. Things tend to fall apart, but they're not the source of they're unrelated to the defects of Cleveland's legal system.
And I guess somewhere in my mind, confusion lies. So did incidents? You had an incident, I believe, with a publication that you made with one of the local judges. Is that pretty much where it started, or was there something prior to that? Because I'm not sure where the Lakewood incident correlates to the article that you had published, or I'm not sure if it was an article or what you had published against the Bedford judge.
Oh, that's a legitimate question, because there was an incident in Lakewood, and which happened in 2001, and in 2007, Detective Mackey from the Cleveland or Cuyahoga Sheriff's Department used this event in a very contrived manner, which didn't make any sense at all. So let me explain. In 2000, my father died. Then in 2001, my mother consigned some of my father's collectibles, which were quite valuable, to a fine arts auctioneer, Wolf's Gallery, Inc. She didn't need to do it. I don't know why she did it, but she did it. My mother was a newly created widow, 87 years old, who desperately missed my father. Everyone did. I mean, everyone loved Dad. He was this magic person. And Wolf's took these very valuable things, sold them for $30,000, and gave my mother nothing. Nothing. They said, drop dead. A vulnerable, newly created 87-year-old widow. So I was, at this time, I was involved in New Hampshire and Vermont in some small construction projects. I decided some small real estate development and had some holdings in Vermont. And I also had some connections, a friend in New Hampshire where I would sometimes stay and then go and work in Vermont and come back to New Hampshire. So I decided to sue Wolf's Gallery, Inc. And I filed against them in Cuyahoga Court of Common Pleas. And it was assigned to this judge named Lillian Green, who's just subnormal. I don't know where they got her. I think they must have waived the literacy requirements when they hired her. But it was assigned to her. And she dismissed the case on a procedural basis. And then it was remanded. I appealed. And I won the appeal, astonishingly enough. I wasn't even barred in Ohio, and the 8th District sent it back to Lillian Green, who just didn't want the case. She just didn't want the case. So, when you have a case, an active case, you have motion practice. And the opposing counsel, motion practice was going fine. You file a brief. He files a brief. I file a brief. And there was nothing, unethical or contentious really going on. There were no Rule 11 motions, which are filed when someone does something which violates law or fact. There were no Rule 12 motions awarded by which a case is dismissed, after which you don't say anything. It's like, over. Okay, be quiet. There were no violations of res judicata or collateral estoppel, which meant that the case or the issues in it had been resolved. There were no warnings about, bad practice in the record. It was just a very normal thing. I won on appeal. The case was remanded to Lillian Green, and it had to, motion practice, and then you go to a hearing. So in the middle of this, opposing counsel says, let's declare me, Mr. Grundstein, me vexatious. He made a motion. Well, I said, well, how can you do that? You can't declare me vexatious. I didn't do anything. So, and you can't do it by motion. It has to be a new action. So anyway, on appeal, I'm sorry, not an appeal. So Lillian Green said, okay, good idea. We'll clear this case from our docket. Granted. Motion granted. And I said, wait, by statute, becoming a vexatious litigator is a new action. You have to have a new filing, a new complaint, service, motion practice. It's a brand new suit. And the authority in Ohio is very clear. You cannot do this by motion. Very clear. And I didn't do anything wrong anyway. So I said, okay, this is subnormal, but, the underclass has taken over the courts in Cleveland. So I filed an appeal, a timely appeal, sent in my brief. And they had me drive in from Vermont, where I was living at the time. And I go in March 2006 to the court, the appellate court. And I noticed, they had, the court looked very different. I knew a lot of the judges in it. And one of the judges, Diane Karpinski, actually offered me a job once. But the lead judge was gone. They had a pro tem judge, a guy named Corrigan. And they said, okay, you don't get your appeal. Go home. And I said, what do you mean I don't get my appeal? I just drove in from Ohio. I'm from Vermont. My brief is in. I get an appeal, by constitutional right in Ohio. Sorry, you're a vexatious litigator. You don't get an appeal. And so go home. So I'm vexatious, and I'm basically legally vulnerable. and maligned. When you're vexatious, it means, you've abused the legal system, and you cannot file anything in any county, in any court, the lowest municipal court to the appellate court in any county in all of Ohio. One court determines jurisdiction for every court in Ohio. It's a miserable statute, and even Ohio declared it unconstitutional later, but the Ohio Supreme Court overruled the
and I don't mean to I don't want you to lose your train of thought. I just honestly became familiar with this term. And I'll be honest, I have 2 years of law school. I never finished. Never heard of this term. And it's becoming more relevant now to me on a couple of the shows. But is it? I know you had referenced in your book that there is like a federal equivalency of it, but I've just never heard of it before. Is this something that's normal for everybody else, or have you heard of other people getting this assigned to them? Or
well, what they do in Ohio is they don't like you. They do use it to shut you up. In Ohio, there's a list which is very accessible in the Ohio Supreme Court of Ohio vexatious litigators. And the thing about it is, too, it's not like you're vexatious for the period of this case, you're vexatious forever. Now, to answer your question, there is a federal statute. There are two vehicles in the federal jurisdiction. There's one under the All Writs Act, in which if someone is, breaking rules, being a bad litigator, you can impose sanctions. And there's another case called Cromer v. Kraft Foods, which said in the federal level, filing restrictions are very limited. They're limited to one party, one party in the litigant who's being aggrieved, and one cause of action. And they're not permanent. They're very narrow because you cannot take away someone's First Amendment right of access to the court on a blanket basis forever. And also, you cannot impose sanctions in excess of the amount of time it took to correct, a bad act. Like suppose someone files, a motion that's a lie, based on a lie, and someone defends it, and it takes them 5 hours to show that this is a lie. It's not based in law or fact. And at $200 an hour, $500, 5 hours, that's $1,000. You get that sanction. Courts will, make up stuff, $80,000. It's incredibly abused. So in 2005, I was declared a vexatious litigator. So I'm completely defenseless in the courts. Now, you wanted to know something about Lakewood. And I'm sorry if I've become circuitous. I don't mean to confuse you. In 2001, I had to come and do some court appearances on behalf of my mother's suit. I had to come in. There was some motion practice. There was a call to hearing. And I had to do some investigation about the assets, what Wolf's Gallery was doing. So I drove from Vermont to Cleveland in 2001. And I was staying with an old girlfriend who lived on Clifton Boulevard. And I brought my .22 pistol with me. I forgot to leave it at home, loaded in the glove compartment. So I was staying at an old girlfriend's, and I forgot to take the gun out of the car. And I was towed on a rush hour violation. I didn't move the car in the morning. The police towed it, went through it, did an inventory search, and found the gun. So I had to go to Lakewood Municipal Court for improper storage of a firearm, which was right. I violated the statute. It's a low misdemeanor. I went in. And the judge, it was very routine. The judge was quite correct. He fined me. And then he destroyed the gun, which was not good. He should have sent the judge. He had no right to destroy the gun. He should have sent it back to Vermont, but details. And it was a misdemeanor of the 4th degree. And, end of story. Don't do anything stupid. So, in 2003, so I went home, paid the fine, lamented the loss of my gun, and went back to Vermont. So in 2003, I went to Vermont, and I was, in Vermont, and I wanted another gun. So I went to the gun store and made, chose a 9mm pistol, a Makarov, very nice Russian gun. And what they do in Vermont is when you buy a gun, they have the NICS investigation at the point of purchase. They call the FBI and say, is this guy, has he ever done a felony, subject to a restraining order, domestic assault? Has he ever been, insane in an asylum? There's like 9 or 10 things. You're probably familiar with it as a policeman. And they do it at the point of purchase. And so I went to buy my gun, and they said, sorry, you can't buy the gun. I said, why not? And they said, well, we can't tell if you're a felon or not. And I said, well, I'm not a felon. I have a lowest degree misdemeanor in Lakewood Municipal Court. They go, well, prove it to us. They said, we'll talk with you, but, because in Lakewood Municipal Court, misdemeanors are punishable up to 1 year. It's confusing because that's the definition of a felony in some places, punishable up to 1 year. So what I did is I called the Lakewood Municipal Court and said, please send me a copy of the order by which I was convicted. I need the order, and I needed to have the level of the subsection and the level of culpability. And so they sent it to me. It was very nice. It was, in the case with the case number, and the case number said misdemeanor. It didn't have the subsection. So what I did is I took the order, and also Lakewood Municipal Court is a court which only has misdemeanor jurisdiction. So I took the order and sent a letter to the FBI and said, okay, guys, here is the order. You'll notice the code section is a misdemeanor section in a court which only has misdemeanor jurisdiction. I proved to them in the Constitution of Ohio that municipal courts only have misdemeanor jurisdiction. And I said, well, even though even the code for gun storage had 3 subsections, A, B, and C. They left out the C on mine, but it didn't make a difference because they're all misdemeanors. So in green ink, I added the C on the court order, sent them a letter and said, they left out the C. Here's the copy of the original statute with C. On my order, I just added it in green ink and wrote them a letter saying, oh, by the way, I added the C myself. It's not a fraud. I'm not changing a felon to a misdemeanor, and just to help them see things. So they got it, and they said, well, we see you wrote on the order, but it doesn't matter. You can have your gun. Go buy your gun. So I went and bought my 9mm. So I wrote on a court order in 2003, but I did not alter it in terms of, in terms of creating a fraud. I just corrected it, and I wrote on it, in Vermont. So that event's very significant.
Everyone, that is a wrap for episode 12. I know we are just getting into it with Bob the Robert Grundstein, but I have to keep you enthralled enough to come back to the next episode. And more importantly, this will keep my SEO analytics editor happy. I want to plug Robert's book again. You can order it on Amazon. It's not that expensive, especially if you like the Kindle version. It is an interesting read and won't take you very long. Until next week, the infamous ex-chief of East Cleveland, signing off.